Where are you guys at on WWE? I mean, it is the hottest topic out there. And it's also one of these topics that in the sport and the world where nothing can be believed. Nothing. Nothing is what it seems. And I don't want to have to apologize for sensitivity. I want to speak to you guys very clearly now, but there is a very large contingency, much larger per capita within the wrestling world than in the modern world of people that believe Elvis Presley is still alive or that Tupac is still alive. Per capita, there is a stronger, meaning if I'm just talking about wrestling fans, there is a larger piece that believe Chris Benoit and company is an angle. It was very difficult, and it was on live television, it was very difficult for Jim Ross to convince the viewer, of which I was one. And I was old enough to know. I was 21, and I was sitting in a room in college, right? We got guys that put their lives on hold to go out and get certified smart. I'm in a room. Shooty was there. Benji was there. Scott Norton was there. Polkinghorn was there. Keeney was there. And none of us knew, and it was on TV, if Owen Hart had died. And Jim Ross knew that we didn't know. And Jim Ross was telling us, the audience, this is not an angle. This is not a work. This is a massive mistake. And it is tragic, and it is horrific, and we are terrified. And we watching did not know if we should believe him. It's an interesting thing, though, right? I mean, conceptually, it's a very interesting thing. And how many times have works become shoots? How many times has some kind of a story angle? I know Kurt Angle since the 90s. I worked for, in that my checks were being signed by Jeff and Karen Jarrett. There was an angle done where Jeff Jarrett stole Kurt's wife, Karen. Kurt, who I knew. It was done on TV. It's nothing more than an angle. No, Kurt and his current family live out in PA, a bunch of kids doing great, and Jeff and Karen and their family live out in Nashville. They had blurred the lines. They had crossed them. They did this with Miss Elizabeth and Lex Luger, just for example. So it's one of these things where you never know. Now, there's a case going on, and this will never go away. Like, this is a very fascinating topic that will not only test your legal sense, it will test your own character, which has to do with civil disobedience. And civil disobedience in my lifetime has been tested and done effectively. One time, it was the story of Oliver North. Iran-Contra, which I will not go into, but I witnessed this. I was young and in middle school, and I witnessed this. Because although Oliver North broke rules and he broke orders, but he did it for the greater good. At least that was his argument. And over time, it was decided that he did. That he did a more noble thing, even though he broke rules to do it. My mother told me, I don't know if this is true, I believed it my whole life. My mother had told me, to put it in perspective, my uncle, he had passed away before I was around, but my mother knew him very well, was an admiral. Ray Pete, he was an admiral, so my mother felt that she had some military sense. My mother told me when I was a little kid that if there was ever a time in war where a superior officer gave an order and you didn't do it, that the superior officer could kill you right there on the battlefield. If you did not recognize and take the order of a superior officer that he legally could, because they had no time, couldn't tolerate, and didn't have to by law. That's what she said. I don't know. I've never checked that, but I've always believed it to be true. And we now find out when we're older that people get back and they test them, and hey, you weren't supposed to do that, or this was unlawful, or this was unwilling. You go, well, which comes first? The fact that he can draw a gun to kill me if I don't do it, and I've been trained to do it, not to mention I'm a military guy, no offense, but I'm not an overly intelligent guy. And I'm supposed to know in the heat of battle what the laws are, and then what do I do? Nobody knows what the laws are. I mean, that's one thing that people love to sidestep, that your politicians and your suits like to go on TV and act noble. They love to do that. And as long as you don't have a camera following them around, right? As long as it's not a Kaiser situation where they can get caught being a total sleazebag, they'll get away with that. But what they don't ever tell you is nobody knows what the laws are. There are laws, but there is no rule on that. See, but you got to understand that. It's opinion. There is no rule to the law. There is only an opinion of the rule. And you can adjudicate that and have something called precedence and have a different judge in a different municipality have a different opinion. So do you see where this gets highly complicated? Now stay with me. Stay with me. Because you have to appreciate that to appreciate what's going on with the WWE. VKM is getting turned on by Johnny Ace, who currently is Johnny Erased. I came up with that, by the way. It's a little cheesy, but that is from me. And Johnny's saying, hey, listen, there's a pecking order. I wasn't number one. He was number one. Here's what he told me to do. I did what he said, thus removing any type of responsibility or removing free will or removing right or wrong. This was the job. There was a culture, and this is a job. Listen, there was something known as an industry standard. I mean, before we start going back and forth, like Johnny, as silly as some of you might think, that there's a place for that argument. Whether it holds up, stand by, but it's what's going on. You ever study World War II? I hate it. I never use the word hate. I hate it because I hate the Nazis and I hate Hitler and there's nothing I can do and I hate how the story ends. And my mother was just like your mother. She told me don't use the word hate. What a powerful and strong word is. I don't use the word hate. I use it now. I hate it. I feel like Hitler escaped. I feel like when you get to the very final part, I feel he escaped. Cyanide, bullet, suicide. Hitler never missed a meal. Hitler never wasn't in a perfectly air-controlled room, right? He'd cool that room down. He could heat the room up. He slept on a bed that was big and had plenty of covers and a nice soft pillow. He never missed a meal. He never went thirsty. I wanted those things. That's why I wanted him captured. Maybe I did want him dead, but I didn't want him dead like that. I didn't want him dead by his own choice. I didn't want him dead by his own hand. I want him dead until they got him, till he spent some time. I don't know what fully I want for him, but I didn't want that. And I hate how that story is. Guys, read a book, and I can't produce the guy's name because it's a German name and it's hard to say, but stay with me. He answered to Adolf himself. And this guy, there was Italians, killed 300 Germans. So Adolf tells this guy, go kill 300 Italians. Just go kill them. So he goes and he rounds up the Italians and he ends up, he can only kill 5 at a time. There's something with the gun, he can only kill 5 at a time. So they kept bringing in 5 and he would just kill them. He had them in this cave. So he ends up executing 305, 5 at a time. So these other ones can hear the shot. They know what's going to happen. They then get drunk. And the other ones know what's going. Could you imagine? Could you imagine the terror? And they didn't do anything. By the way, they were just Italian. They had to send a message to Italy. So he killed 305. Now they killed 300 Germans. And Adolf himself said, go kill 300 Italians. They killed 305. We went a little over. He then had his blasting guys blow up the entrance to the cave to cover up these bodies so that nobody would ever find out that he killed 305 and or where he did it, which kind of did away with the point because all Hitler really wanted was for the Italians to know you kill 300 of us, we kill 300 of you, right? It's one of these things. So when he covered it up, and then the war comes to an end. Adolf dies, this guy goes and opens up a deli. He opened up a deli. He had that for 52 years until they caught him. They came in and captured him. They take him to trial. And he says, hey, listen, you want to talk about what I did at peacetime? I'll lay down. I'll lay down and give myself to you. But we weren't at peacetime. We were at wartime. And I had a boss. And here was the instruction. Now, you must understand, if I didn't do it, just like the other side, just like the Italians, if I didn't do it, they would kill me, and the person that killed me would then go and do it. So the order is getting done anyway, and they came back, and the trial says, okay, but by your own statement, you were told to kill 300, and you killed 305. So even in a best-case scenario, by your own scenario, you have murdered 5 people. He said, well, not so fast. Like, first off, we didn't know what to do with them once we had them. And there was even some room for miscounting. I wasn't really keeping track. I mean, we did the counting after it was done. And yeah, there was 5 extra, but like that wasn't really an intent. Like, it got weird, right? And all of a sudden, what a tough topic. You're talking about taking people, taking them out, and then killing, and then burying. Their families don't even know where they are. Like, you're talking about the worst thing, but you're doing it in a very matter-of-fact standpoint. So now the jury doesn't know what to do. They hate the guy. He's awful. He's involved with it. He's a Nazi. He's the worst thing that we've ever been educated about. If there's a worst thing, it did not make it into public education. The Nazis are the worst, and he's one of them. And we've got him. But did he do anything that in a different situation, right? We admit he had a terrible leader. We admit this was a terrible thing. We admit all of these things, but there's still rules. He has to follow his superior officer. We, in America, we have those same laws. According to my mother, you must do it on the battlefield or they can actually, I mean, it's just a really interesting thing. Now, if you do it, our scumbag politicians will not look out for you. They will come and throw you under the bus and tell you it's against the law, but there is no laws. There's only opinion of laws, and that's where everything starts to get convoluted. What do? What do you do? Now, those examples, of course, that was apples and oranges, right? Because one was wartime, and one was peacetime. But the argument by Johnny Erased is very similar, which is I had a boss and I was scared. I have a family and I have a job and I have answers that I have to do. There was many of them that I didn't agree with and many that I didn't want to do. But don't all of you also? You say, well, my God, that doesn't give you the right to break the law. And Johnny says, but I didn't break the law. I'm not accused of breaking the law. There was adults and it was private, but there was consensual. There's no law that's being accused of being broken. There's some morality and some ethical issues. But that came from down the chain. And the other person also was a subordinate. So their entire argument that I was a subordinate. I didn't want to do this. But I was a subordinate too. And all of a sudden it starts to be very interesting, doesn't it? And even if you think you know where you land, even though it's very clear to all of us where we should land, we still got to get there. You still have to get there by some kind of legal precedent and or protocol. So if this one's a victim because they were a subordinate, but I'm also a subordinate, then aren't I also a victim? That's the argument being made. That's a fascinating social study. I think you would agree.